Welcome back to my MCU series leading up to Avengers Infinity War, and today we're talking about Iron Man 2, and I've got another collaborator this time reviewing the film with me. It's Rachel Wagner. She'll be giving her thoughts about the film in just a few minutes time. Now, Iron Man 2 is considered by a lot of people to be one of, if not the worst film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and after rewatching the film for this video, I can't exactly argue with them. Iron Man 2 is not a terrible film by any means whatsoever. In fact, I don't think it's entirely a bad one. It just has a lot of shortcomings, but some positives as well. Robert Downey Jr. is still awesome as Tony Stark. His narcissistic attitude plays with some really good comedy in the film sometimes, and the banter he has with Pepper Potts is also really funny, and I really like those two as a couple as well. I think they're one of my favourite comic book movie couples of the last few years. And the action scenes in the film were pretty cool, especially the finale where you have Iron Man and War Machine fighting all those drones. It was fun comic book popcorn movie action, and it was easily the most entertaining part of the film, I thought. But now let's get to those shortcomings that I mentioned. For the first, I'd say about half hour of this film, I was kind of enjoying it actually. I was like, maybe this film's not as bad as people say it is. But after that first half hour, the film then starts to drag, but not in the way where it's boring, but in the way where nothing really compelling's happening. Let's talk about Tony Stark's self-destruction, because the entire second act of this film is all about him getting drunk, he's pissing about, he's not giving a crap. I understand why this is happening, I understand the story-based reason for it, because the stuff inside his arc reactor is failing, so he's dying. But it just didn't really make me feel for him at all. In fact, the scene at the house party where he's just getting pissed inside the Iron Man suit, and Rhodey comes and takes another Iron Man suit and fights him off, I was actually like, yeah, take his stuff away, it's being way too out of control and irresponsible. When you start rooting against the hero of the film, something's not right. Then you get to the villains of the film. You've got Mickey Rourke as Ivan Vanko. He's got this vendetta against the Stark family. He attacks Tony Stark at the racetrack, and then Justin Hammer breaks him out of jail, and they start working together to try and duplicate Tony Stark's technology. Any motivation you feel for Mickey Rourke's character is gone faster than it's established, because he spends most of this film inside Justin Hammer's lab building stuff. And there's a large portion of the film where he's not even on screen, and then the film cuts back to him and you're like, oh yeah, Mickey Rourke's in this film, I kind of forgot about that. I forgot that the main villain of the film was in the film. You don't feel his motivations, you don't connect to him, you barely see him. Mickey Rourke's Russian accent's not the greatest. His evil scheme was pretty good though, with him hacking into all those drones and the War Machine armor and attacking Stark Expo. When was the last time you can say that a film had an underwhelming villain but he still had a solid evil plan? And Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer was this Weasley businessman trying to steal Tony Stark's designs. So there's nothing interesting to latch onto there apart from Sam Rockwell doing a good job at the acting, which he always does. What it all boils down to is that Iron Man 2 feels like three different concepts for an Iron Man film crunched into one. Tony Stark's self-destruction, Ivan Vanko's revenge quest, and Justin Hammer trying to steal Tony Stark's designs. All these story arcs are just thrown together and they don't really flow very well with each other, and they just don't really overlap that much at all, and it makes the film feel choppy and cluttered. And that's the big issue with Iron Man 2. It's trying to do too much and it just can't carry the weight that it's trying to carry. Again, I don't hate Iron Man 2, it's got some redeeming qualities like Robert Downey Jr. and pretty much the entire cast all do pretty good jobs, and the action scenes are entertaining, but overall Iron Man 2 is still definitely one of the weaker MCU films, and I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. But now I go over to my special guest Rachel Wagner for her thoughts on Iron Man 2, so Rachel, tell us what you thought.
Hi everybody, so I'm Rachel from Rachel's Reviews, and it's really fun to get to be on Jack's channel, and I appreciate this chance to talk about Iron Man 2. And Iron Man 2 is routinely picked as the worst of the Marvel films, and it is a flawed film, but I don't think it's quite as bad as a lot of other people seem to think it is. I think I think it's watchable. I think it's an okay superhero movie. I think that we have gotten a little bit spoiled. If you think about when I was in high school in the 90s, way back then, the superhero movies were, I think, a lot worse than this. You know, it's things like Batman and Robin and stuff like that. We get so many good ones that I think something like Iron Man 2 is criticized pretty heavily. Well, there's a lot of positives. Of course, this was the sequel to the first Iron Man, which is one of the better origin stories I think ever done for a super movie on screen. What they do so well in the original Iron Man is they make Tony so likable, and he's smart, he's scrappy, and he learns a lot by the end of the movie. It's not just becoming a superhero, but when he's having to design the Iron Man suit in the cave, we forget because Tony has been kind of stupid in the last like 3 films. We forget that in that original Iron Man, he was really smart. And he did things that Jeff Bridges and the other characters couldn't do with tons of technology and stuff in a cave, because he was scrappy and he was smart. And he did have an ego, but he was still likable. And you got to meet Pepper Potts, and Terrence Howard was the original Rhodey, and it all just worked pretty well. Now we get to Iron Man 2, and Iron Man 2 is kind of like, to me, a filler episode of a TV show that you really like. Like, it's not bad, but it's just not one of the great episodes. And you get the main story here is that everybody knows now who Iron Man is because of the publicity and everything. And I think that's actually kind of interesting, because most superhero movies are about superheroes that are hiding who they are, whether it's Peter Parker or Clark Kent or Bruce Wayne or whatever it might be. They're pretending to be normal, and then they're secretly superheroes. So this with Iron Man 2, it's kind of a different dynamic. It's the first time that we really have like a celebrity superhero. And so that's kind of an interesting dynamic that they explore. And you see that Tony's personality really is not a good mixture for that kind of celebrity. And that it brings out the worst in him. We also get introduction to Black Widow in this movie with Scarlett Johansson. She's so beautiful. She's so great. I actually think that Whiplash is a pretty decent villain with Mickey Rourke. The problem is that he's really only like a secondary villain. There's a long stretches of this movie where he's not in it, and Sam Rockwell becomes the main villain of the movie. And most of the Iron Man movies, for some reason, they end up having a man in a suit, a bad man in a suit. Because all of the Iron Man movies and a lot of the Marvel movies, even Captain America Winter Soldier, the villain ends up becoming a greedy corporate guy, man in a suit kind of thing. And this is definitely no exception. And it's a shame, because I think they could have done more with the Whiplash character, made him a little bit more interesting, made him a little bit more of the focus. You also have Rhodey in here is now Don Cheadle, and I think that he's really good. It's definitely, I think, an improvement, even though Terrence Howard is a good actor. I just think that Don Cheadle is a better fit for Marvel and for Rhodey. And, he's just so frustrated seeing Tony just spiral and spiral and spiral. And Pepper is very frustrated as well, because she has to try to make the business work and make things work despite his completely narcissistic behavior. The other highlight of Iron Man 2 is the long sequence at the track that they have at the in Monaco track with Whiplash there. That whole sequence is really cool, really well done. And it holds up. It still, I think, looks pretty good. The downside to Iron Man 2 is, I think the biggest thing is Justin Hammer, the Sam Rockwell character. He's just not interesting. He's so similar to the Jeff Bridges character and some of the other, like I said, man in a suit that we've seen so much. That part really doesn't hold up all that well. Also, some of the cinematic world building with Nick Fury and things like that, it had to be done, but it's a little clunky. It feels clunky, and I almost wish it had been like they had done it sort of like a bonus scene, a maybe end credit scene, something like that. It's just a little clunky. The biggest problem is you just can't have Tony Stark being this unlikable for this long of the movie. Yes, he had an ego in the first movie, but he was still smart, he was still funny, he was still engaging, he was still likable. In this, he is just such a jerk. He's so narcissistic. He's so rude to the people in his life, and it's pretty much the whole movie. And so that makes it really hard to watch, because it's just I don't know, it's just not that entertaining to see this like narcissistic personality treat people badly and get drunk and pee in his suit and stuff like that. Like that's just not very entertaining. So that's the biggest problem I have with it, is that they just managed to make Tony very unlikable. And so that's the back and forth on Iron Man 2. I don't think it is awful. I don't think it's unwatchable, like some people seem to think, but it's not a movie that like I'm desperate to sort of rewatch or that I love or by any means. I'd give it like, I don't know, like a C plus or a B minus kind of a grade. And there you go. It'd be interesting to see what Jack thinks of this one. So back to you, and thanks so much for letting me be part of your channel.
Thanks Rachel for being in the video. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to it yet, what the hell are you doing? Go and subscribe to it. There'll be a link at the end of the video. There's a link down in the description. Go and subscribe to it. Tell her I sent you. But in the meantime, tell me in the comments below what you think of Iron Man 2. And if you want to see more of my stuff, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.